So thank you everyone for joining us for Men's Health Week. Today, we will be presenting Men's Mental Health Roundtable Discussion, our Blue Table Talk. So I am Ayana Mbonu. I am the Be Well Program Manager, the mental health portion of Work Well NYC, and I'll be moderating today along with Jerry Hyppolite. He's a Deputy Director of Compliance at DYCD. He is a mental health educator, life coach, and counselor. So welcome all. Before we get started, I would like to tell you just a little bit about Work Well NYC. So today's presentation is brought to you by Work Well NYC, the city's worksite wellness program, and we're here to help you live well and work well. Our goal is to create worksites that make it easier for our employees to live healthy, active lifestyles. Health is not just the absence of disease. Health is physical, mental, financial, emotional, and we know that health exists on a spectrum. We are here for you with health and well-being resources, programs, and support to help you move more, eat well, be well, and take action to prevent disease, no matter where you are on our health journey. So we are going to get started with a poll. So we'd like for you to answer this question. What percentage of men suffer from a period of depression during their lifetime? So the poll will pop up on your screen. And so take a moment and answer what you think is the most likely answer. All right, well, let's see what the results are. I'm going to share the results. So what percentage of men suffer from a period of depression during their lifetime? So most of you said 53%. Actually, the APA states that 31% is the number. The percentage of men who suffer from a period of depression in their lifetime, which includes symptoms such as rage and risk-taking. So it's not as high as what most of you thought, but it is quite a high number overall. So we have one more poll for you. And the next question is, true or false? Men are more likely than women to commit suicide. So let's see, what do you think? Do you think that men are more likely to attempt or commit suicide than women? All right, so most people have voted. Let's see what you all think. Okay. So most of you believe that men are more likely to attempt suicide than women. Actually, men are more likely to die by suicide. Women are more likely to attempt suicide. And men are more likely to die by suicide because they use more lethal means to commit suicide. And so very interesting. We'll talk more about these topics as we go on through our roundtable discussion. Next, we'd like to move on to our video. We have a really great video that was done by Jerry, talking about how he works well. So we'll take a moment and watch our video.
For me, if I really want to be the best version of myself, it means putting mental health first. We grew up, one-bedroom apartment, had 3 siblings, and a very disengaged father. And so what that forced me to do was really grow up early. There really wasn't a lot of room or space to talk about feelings. When real issues started to arise, I really didn't know how to cope with them. I had a child rather young, unexpected and unmarried. That by itself can be extremely scary. And then finally, I had a major cancer scare. And the minute you find out or you realize that your health is no longer in your control, what do you do next? stigma. The subcomponent now speaks to men. And if you ever talk to a man before, there's this unconscious silence. And so you have the stigma and the silence. Those are really the two main challenges that we have right now with mental health as it relates to men. To support my mental health, I go to the gym, I meditate, I also pray, and I take time for myself for my own self-checks. And then one of my favorite parts is really my part of a men's group. And in that opportunity, we share out things that are great to us, things that might be challenging to us, and ways that we can continue to be better. I would encourage all men who are dealing with mental health, the first thing is to speak past the silence. It's hard enough as men for us to talk about how we feel. And it comes to a certain point where we have to reframe masculinity. And in that space, we'll be able to connect with the right resources, with the right people, to take our overall mental health and then speak to our physical health. My name is Hyppolite, and I work well.
I'm going to hand things over to Jerry to get started with the roundtable discussion.
Awesome. Good morning. Thank you, Ayana. Thank you, Work Well, for allowing this platform for us to really dive deep into men's mental health. As a counselor, as someone who works in the city, this is something that I am exceptionally passionate about. And really, what does that look like? Taking individuals such as ourselves to the best versions of ourselves, so we can reach the best outcomes for ourselves. And so with that, as we speak about mental health, I think the first thing really is, let's talk about what exactly is mental health. Now, mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to contribute to their community. In the mental health world, we consider it our ability to live, love, and laugh. Now, when you talk about mental health, it's really hard to speak about mental health with really not acknowledging culture. Culture, see, it's very fluid as well as complex. In many areas, it could be values, norms, gender, religion, societal expectations, and even identity. And that's just to name a few. Now, this gives us great impact in different things that considers our mental health. Those things are such as our health choices, what health actually means to us, what we think of as something that causes good and or bad health. Who do we go to for support, whether it's friends, family, physicians, or even clergy? It makes us really think about our values about health and healthcare, as well as our overall behaviors towards mental health. And as you really get into the culture, we really want to come to this place with cultural humility. Now, cultural humility, that's an ability to be self-reflective in the discovery of yourself, as well as the differences in others, so that you can have a healthy conversation to move forward. And so in this space, we actually want to give some cultural humility to men's health. And in that space, we're going to really dive into some of the differences between men's health and other people's health. So let's take, for example, depression in men. When we talk about depression in men, there's a couple of signs and symptoms that are different. First off, men with depression tend to hide their emotions and may seem angry or irritable. Sometimes they may come across as aggressive, while many women may just seem sad or express sadness. In other cases, men may lose interest in work, family, or hobbies, and more likely have difficulty sleeping. Men are more likely to see the doctor about their physical symptoms rather than their emotional ones. And very similar to the poll that you participated in earlier, some men may turn to drugs and alcohol to cope with their emotional symptoms. While women with depression are more likely to attempt suicide, men are more likely to die by suicide because they tend to use more lethal methods. In this space, a lot of times, men's mental health is really called the silent crisis. And so for us to really dive into this and unpack a lot of this stuff, we have some really great panelists that I want to introduce to you all. So our panelists consist of some really great men. We're going to start off with Gordon Goldberg, who's the Director of Labor Relations at the Department of Transportation. We also have Stephen Dickerson, from the Director of Conflict Resolution from the Department of Social Services. And we also have Jeremy Taylor, Wellness Coordinator from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And we're going to dive into some really great talk. But before I go any further, our fifth panelist is you. I say that because you're going to bring your thoughts, some of your questions to our very own discussion. You'll see a chat box. Please dive in, share us your thoughts, ask questions. I want us to be as engaging as possible. One of the major goals that we have for this discussion is that it's relevant to the times, it's relative to you, and it's real to your truth. And so with that, let's get ready to start our blue table discussion. So fellas, are you in the room with me?
Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm here.
Awesome. All right, cool. So let's start this off the right way. I'll start with Stephen. What were you taught about mental health?
Sorry, Stefan's running a little late. He'll be on shortly, so we'll get back to him.
Oh, not a problem. That just leaves more room for dialogue. So I'll flip it the other way. Gordon, can you take over that spot and just guide us? What were you taught about mental health?
What about mental health? Let's talk a bit about my own experience. When I was in elementary school, I had basically an emotional breakdown. A bunch of things had happened in my life, some deaths in the family, other things. And I had an emotional breakdown and was sent to the school psychologist. And at that stage, I was taught a lot of really bad things, basically to suppress my emotions, just pretend that they didn't exist. You know, the whole man up thing, rather than learning to cope with them. And so it was just a lot of just be stoic, be just whatever. And it wasn't until I was in college that this whole suppression of my emotions really started to impact my life. I was in my first relationship and there were issues with that because I couldn't deal with my own emotions. I was freezing up on exams and classes because of that. And I ended up going to the counseling center at the university, and they actually started helped and basically had to break down all those bad walls that I had been taught to put up, and teach me to actually own the emotions, accept that I had these emotions, and learn to cope with them and learn coping mechanisms to deal with being an emotion, it's okay to be an emotional person, and that there are ways to channel those emotions and cope with them rather than just boarding them up and basically letting them boil inside you and pretend that they don't exist.
No, I think you hit it in the head, Gordon. I can't tell you how many times that I was put in that position or I felt that very same way. Jeremy, what were you taught about mental health growing up?
Yeah, so for me, I would first, say that I wasn't really taught anything, and in saying not being taught anything, it's more so that mental health wasn't something that was discussed explicitly, you wouldn't hear anyone, even family or friends, talking about, seeing a therapist or speaking about if they were going through something, that actually acknowledging it, right? So the silence, the not bringing it up, I think you're not able to learn that way. So that's kind of, what I'll say about that. And eventually I ended up learning from my own research, right, in school. I will add that what I did learn indirectly, right, about mental health was holding everything in, right? Wow. So also, and perhaps that's from family, but also you see it, for me, my experience was outside of the home as well, whether it's school or whether it was being an athlete, that's what you were taught, to keep everything in. And also just the stigma around mental health in general. That's what I was taught, you know? And then another thing I would say was I was taught, right, viewing therapy or therapists and seeking out support as in a negative light. So in not being taught anything about it, I ended up learning all of these bad things about mental health. So
No, I think that's powerful stuff. I feel like I've toggled between what you said, Jeremy, and even what Gordon was saying earlier. I know growing up, sometimes I felt I was in a place of just emotional homelessness. I really didn't know where to place my emotions. I really didn't know what to do with it. Similar to what you said about being an athlete, and even what Gordon said about just pushing forward and bottling that stuff in. And depending on what cultural dynamic you're in, it was like another layer of taboo. Like, I remember my mom had a tea, and tea fixed everything. Tea fixed, if you weren't feeling well, if you were sad, just have some tea, because no one wanted to talk about it.
yep.
And so it left this big ambiguity of what is going on inside me that I couldn't find a way to talk about until I got earlier. So this really speaks to from the foundations of what we were taught to how can we break that mold right now so that people can learn younger, earlier, and even better. Speaking to what Gordon said, how to cope, what are the best practices to move forward. So far, I think this is really, really great. Let's speak about what's this next question that we have coming up. Wow. All right. What does healthy mental health in men actually look like? I started with Gordon. Jeremy, you take the lead on this one.
All right. So I'll first say it looks like self-care. It looks like us taking care of ourselves. And we know that, you know, even if anyone was on the meeting yesterday, you know, that men are less likely to take care of themselves, you know, or go to the doctor, etc. So I think it first starts with that. It's self-care, making sure that we're able to, you know, be in a space where we can help others. I will also say healthy mental health looks like opening up. You know, it looks like being uncomfortable with expressing the way you feel about something. You know, for example, one of my friends hit me up like last week and just said something along the lines of, I was like, "How are you?" And the response was like, "Man, I'm not doing so good, but I don't want to be like complaining or anything." And, you know, just the thought of the fact that my reply is like, "You're not complaining, what's wrong?" And the response was, "I lost my job." And just the idea of that, we feel as if we can't, you know, open up and just talk about something like that. So being able to do that is healthy. And then just finally from myself, I think being able to connect and speak to other men and open up about, you know, just talk freely about what we're experiencing and having that comfort. I think that's what healthy mental health looks like, right? Having that support network, because, you know, oftentimes you're hanging out with a group of fellas, you're not really talking about what you're feeling or what happened, you know, to you or anything like that. So I think for me, that's one thing that healthy mental health looks like.
No, I totally agree with you. It's like we have to take it out the barbershop and bring it into the homes and really have that type of dialogue.
Yeah.
Gordon, bring us in. What does healthy mental health look like in men?
I think everything that Jeremy just said, but also just the acknowledgement that mental health and physical health are both intertwined and are the same thing. That seeking care for mental health is just as important as seeking care for physical illnesses.
No, I think that's great. I remember we spoke offline and you mentioned, well, I asked you, what would you tell your younger self? And you gave like a phenomenal answer. Would you mind sharing that answer?
It was basically don't be afraid to ask for help. That it's important to seek it as important as if you weren't feeling well physically. To own your mental health as much as your physical health.
Awesome. Dr. Weaver once told me that there is no health without mental health. And so that totally resonated with me. And so, like you said, with self-care and just being uncomfortably open to connect really takes us to that level of showing in men, what does healthy mental health look like? So let's go to the next question. All right, what do you do when you're experiencing a mental health challenge? Gordon, take us.
These days now, I fortunately have a good group of friends who are supportive, who I can talk to, both at work and just in my private life. So often I'll just talk it out, go back to those coping skills that I learned in college, and just accept the fact that first of all, don't wall off the fact that I'm having this challenge, but open up about it and seek the help that I need.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Jeremy, guide us through what would be some of your best practices when you're experiencing mental health, what you actually do, any type of challenge.
Yeah, so the first thing for me, it's disconnecting from whatever, whether it's a thing, person, or situation that's causing the challenge, right? If that's the case, because I always tell my friends, if something is causing you anxiety, causing you stress, why keep your hand on the burning stove, you know? So that's my thing personally, is disconnecting and removing from that. And, you know, a good example, I like sharing examples. We know, like for me, social media and news has been kind of a big source of like anxiety, as we can imagine for many of us, right? And not just with COVID-19, but also with, you know, the recent injustices and murders of Black and brown people in America. So, you know, seeing and getting all the information, being able to just step back and take some time for myself, you know, is important. So that's the second part. So first, disconnect. And then second is, what am I going to then do to get centered, right? You know, and Gordon mentioned like coping mechanisms and such. So yes, I do self-care. I go hiking, listen to music, you know, do art. And then the final thing is then being honest with like friends about, you know, what I'm going through, you know? And what I will mention real quickly with that is that I found that many times we're afraid to communicate how we're feeling with, you know, our closest network and groups. But like recently when I opened up and shared, man, nah, it's not a good week, you know, it's not a good day. And then the response I get is, man, it's not a good week for me either. And then you keep, you know, everybody then starts opening up and you realize that, man, we're all going through something. So now we feel like, okay, I'm not alone going through this. And I think that's powerful. So those are kind of my, you know, 3 steps of things that I do when, you know, I might be going through some mental health challenge.
Definitely love your steps with the pause. Likewise, Gordon, I know for myself, I think the first thing I do is just assess where I am, right? What is exactly happening to me? So just assess what's happening. And then from there, all right, cool, who do I need to speak to? And if after conversations and connecting, I still feel a certain type of way for a certain period of time, all right, what does that look like for me to get actual professional help? And tell myself that's okay, right? And so like I try to follow those guidelines. And then I have other people hold me accountable. And when I say accountable, I'm talking about hold me up with care. So if they see me not moving as I should, hey, how about we go take a walk or we do something? So I have safeguards just to ensure that in case I slip or I delay on my own care, that they can help pick me up to continue that care. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely.
So let's go to the third question. I'm glad that
It looks like we have Stephen Stephen online.
All right, cool. So I'm going to bring Stephen in with the third question. And Stephen, I want you to get ready because you're going to lead us into this third question.
So unmute yourself.
Yes.
It's all good. So while he's unmuting, I'm going to read out the question. Who do you speak to when you're experiencing a mental health challenge? Stephen, take us away.
I think I'm very fortunate that I have a mentor that has guided me through my career in HR that I can always reach out to, as well as my friends and family. So I think I'm really well grounded in that sense that when I'm experiencing any kind of challenge, and I want you to be mindful of the work that I do. I direct an Office of Conflict Resolution for the Department of Social Services, which is 17,000 employees. So my staff and I are dealing with workplace disputes day in and day out. And, and that can be challenging, just the job itself. And then you take on whatever personal concerns that you have within your own home and it's your own family, it adds to that. So you have to find ways of distressing. So for me, I've always been involved in athletics. So for me, it's going to the gym. Because whatever tension or anger I need to take out, I can take it out with the weights or working out. I have a close group of friends that I can always communicate, and that's always helpful to me and helps me distress, as well as working with my staff. And we've been very fortunate that we try to participate in a number of trainings on conflict resolution, on mental health, to stay, grounded and to help us in some of the situations that we're dealing with.
Powerful stuff. Gordon, follow that up. Who do you speak to when you're experiencing a challenge?
Like I said before, I've got a good core group of friends who are really supportive and can talk things out with them. Some of them are in similar situations in terms of if it's a work type challenge. They're also in labor relations in other agencies, so they can relate to those issues. A lot of friends who I've been friends with since university, who I can talk to about anything, whether it's a challenge at work or a relationship challenge. Had a core group of friends who were really there for me when I was in what was basically a really abusive relationship with my now ex-boyfriend. And they were really there behind me, and that really helped.
Nice. Jeremy, who do you speak to?
So yeah, as I alluded to earlier, I think for me, it's my closest friends. And I will say that this is probably within the last maybe let's say 4 years, right? And I think it takes growth. So that's for me. It's speaking to my friends, and also, finding people that are also comfortable with sharing and opening up and being honest with you as well. So if that might also be a coworker, then I'll do that. But most of the times, it's just with my closest friends, my brothers.
I share that. So I definitely create a lot of, because one of the things I'm hearing amongst us men is just creating a great support group. And earlier I mentioned, hey, we have to take the barbershop out the barbershop, because sometimes the working or the business hours are closed. So who do you speak to after 7 o'clock, right? Who do you talk to? And then the other real lift speaks to the people that you talk to, that they can handle some of your heaviness, right? And so when we talk about your support group, right? Can you handle my vulnerability? Can you handle my cry? And if you can't, can we both acknowledge it and we find who's the best person suited for that? And so those things craft that. And it could be in the professional environment, knowing who to speak to, who you can tag on the side, to the personal environment, because even with all family, I can't talk to all family about all my things. So sometimes I have to just plug in on the one person, that one cousin, that one brother or sister, that one friend that, okay, how I am, I need your help in this. Help me guide through this. So that's definitely who I speak to, is definitely building a support group. And then even modeling. I love what you said of being able to share back, that level of modeling, so that you're giving the same thing and you have a safe space to have that returned.
Hey, Jerry, I want to add, it's also important that we seek out professional help as well. It's wonderful to have people and family and friends and your church that you can go to and to speak with. But it's so important, we're talking about wanting to change the stigma of mental health, but there are mental health professionals out there that also can help you as well. So we should also look for professional help when needed.
So in total agreement, if you find yourself going to that space, that's definitely where you should go, because that'll take the conversation to another level of change. So totally in full agreement. And let's see what our last question gives us. Wow, men are less likely to speak about their mental health concerns. Why do you think this is so? All right. Stephen, since you came on last, I'm gonna ask again that you lead us, and I'm gonna make my way down.
I think that, you know, being raised in a large family of men, it's almost in that group, you were feeling less manly if you felt that you needed to talk about any mental health concerns. That wasn't a place with 6 brothers and 3 sisters to be able to talk to them about any of those concerns. And I'm coming from a different generation. So at that point, men were not talking about mental health. Men were not even going out seeking help for physical. I use my father's example. When he would come very ill, he was a workaholic. He would go to work every day. And my mother would have to get involved and force him to go to the doctor just to seek out whatever the physical health conditions were. But it's still very much a stigma attached to it. And we have to work to break down those barriers. I just think that's really important. I think that's part of it, is the stigma. And men are less likely. They figure we're going to figure it out ourselves, when you really should seek out professional help.
Great stuff, Stephen. Jeremy.
Yeah, I think, you know, it starts from young, you know. We're less likely because when, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't learn anything because as a kid, maybe you aren't taught about mental health. Maybe you aren't taught about what you are supposed to do, right? So, and we also are influenced by society and what society says men should do and how men should be. So all those other compounding factors, it makes it a little bit more difficult, and obviously in the stigma, and also I will say, I guess this is part of stigma, but for me it's lack of like support from or encouragement from others for men to actually do these things. And if I know just from experience, like in my group, like my friends, for example, if one is in need of speak to someone, as we're saying, a group of us were trying to encourage one person to do so, and their thought about, oh, because I'm going to therapy, that means I'm crazy, or something's really wrong, and it's not that bad at all, so like us having to be there to encourage them. So that's the other thing, like having people around us to encourage us to speak up about our mental health is really important.
No, great stuff. Gordon, close us out.
Yeah, it's the whole man up syndrome again, where it's hard enough to get men to deal with physical ailments and go see a doctor. I know my mom harasses me on a daily basis. When was the last time you got a checkup? Get to the doctor. It's worse now that we've been in quarantine for 3 months, because I speak to her every day and she tells me the same thing. So if you're not going to go to see a doctor when you're physically unwell, the whole stigma of men aren't supposed to be emotional, man up, you're even less likely to seek mental health assistance.
Yeah, no, you guys are saying a lot of great stuff. I know for me, when I think about why, the first thing I think about is redefining masculinity, because it has all these different stigmas or expectations on what exactly that actually means. When the actuality is there's strength in vulnerability, there's strength in sitting down and having that type of conversation. I already told you guys I grew up in a household where tea solved everything. And what I did to switch it around was that I made it tea and talk. And after tea and talk, then it was tea, talk, and then therapy. We're gonna figure this thing out. I'm not gonna take away your antidote because that may be your language to speak to me, but I have to take it up another level so we can help one another. And so this is one of the first times that I've seen a space where men can actually speak to what's going on inside of them. They can speak to the unrest, and creating more spaces like this. Because growing up, there's not too many spaces where you can come together as men, whether it's young adult, whether it's teens, to sit down and just, I need to talk, I need to just check on you. Stefan, how are you doing today? Gordon, where are you at right now? You know, there's not those type of conversations. So speaking to what you guys are saying, planting that seed from young to create space to have that type of talk from day one really helps sets us off. So with that, I do believe this is the end of our questions, but the beginning of the Q&A. So I'm gonna pass this right now to Ayana. Ayana, can you take us through the Q&A, please?
You're still on mute.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy.
No
So
problem.
let me get back to the beginning. And we had some question about the demographic breakdown of statistics that we gave in the beginning. So we can definitely share that. Everybody will get link to this recording and the resources that we have for all the information that we shared today. Mr. Martinez asked, can we provide more information about a men's group? So I'm not sure if we have a men's group, or if you can provide some information about any kind of groups that you are aware of.
I think that one came up during Jerry's video. So maybe, I know it was mentioned that you do men's groups. I think it was regarding that.
So just to speak on men's group, first and foremost, I know there's a couple around. There are a couple around in different boroughs conducted by different people. And so what I can do, I'll share that resource with Workwell, and they'll see if they can provide it out to everyone. But look around, plug into your neighbor. And if you want, take the initiative, be creative, and you start one. This is really about men coming together, having a conversation, and seeing where we are so we know where we need to be.
And so there's a gentleman that is taking this time to really find purpose and going back to school to get his license in mental health counseling. So that's really awesome. And then we have someone who mentioned around the conversation about what we were taught, says what this person was taught, that in the Black home, what happens in the house stays in the house. And that, I know most of you, I know I can definitely agree with that. Alrighty.
I don't think that that's just it. That may be the case in a Black home. I know also I had an ex who was Latino, and that was the same thing in that household. Was what stays in the house, what happens in the household stays in the household. You don't talk to anyone about the things that are going on in the family or how you're feeling. It's all in the household.
Yeah. We have a question. Can the panelists speak a bit more on the intersection of race, sexuality, economic status, et cetera, and its impact on men's mental health?
Wow.
Loaded question, huh?
So
That's another hour.
So let me see if I can start this off. I believe if the statistic is right, and Ayana might need your help on this. I know it's either 1 to 4, 1 to 5. People go through mental health challenges per year in the United States, right?
Absolutely.
And so now you take that number, this is a general number, and it's 2-3 times higher for minorities, and then add another 2-3 times higher for anybody in the LGBTQ community who's also minority. So you take that number, you double it down, because now you're adding stigma on type of silence, on type of shame. And trying to break that, i.e. what we're doing right now, really speaks to how can I engage a conversation and meet you where you are? And just the key word again is meet you where you are, so that we can have active, non-judgmental listening. We can assess to see where you are. We can give you professional help, and I can be a part of that support team to help bring you to a better place. So I want to give you numbers so you understood, like, this is what it looks like generally, but when we get into subtopics, it only magnifies.
Awesome.
I'll pass it to Gordon, Jeremy, or Stefan.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Gordon.
No. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was just, I completely agree. I mean, I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but just from, what I've seen or, communicating with friends, colleagues, etc., and just reading, yeah, I think it obviously plays a big role. And especially as you said, when you dive deeper into like the subgroups, right, of race and sexuality, and then add on top of that economic status, like the level of mental health support that's needed is greater. And on top of all of the other things that those groups might be dealing with. So yeah, I mean, just kind of echoing what you just said. That's it.
So I have another great question. How can I support my spouse when he's going through a mental health challenge? Anybody want to answer?
All right, I'm gonna jump in. I'm not gonna allow it to be that awkward silence. We're still in the barbershop. It's okay. I think the first thing to do is ask. Let's say ask, like, start the conversation in a very genuine way, and understanding that typically when men do speak, it usually starts off with "I'm all right, I'm good," and then don't be afraid to have that uncomfortable second ask. No, really, how are you? And allow that platform to be safe enough to say, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable, and how can I help? And then you monitor and you follow. A lot of times, especially the prevalence of a husband is, again, traditional norms of caregiver, everything's supposed to be shouldered on my weight. I'm not supposed to show you how I feel. You're just supposed to tell me how you feel. No, flip it the other way. You don't have to be strong today. Right now, let's be strong together and start the conversation that way, and then see what different help can come. Because maybe you're not the person that he may need to speak to open up, and it's somebody else. But the first thing is to get that individual talking.
Awesome. So can you all give ideas on how to cope with anxiety surrounding COVID-19 and isolation?
Yeah, I mean, I can share a few. One, staying connected, right? As we've been kind of echoing and talking a lot about today. So I feel like right now that's even more important, right? Whether virtually, just calling someone, and as I mentioned earlier, monitoring for me, like how much news, and how much information I'm taking in, particularly with the question, because that can create some anxiety because you're the worry about whether you're going to get sick, someone else is going to get sick. So I think, yeah, disconnecting, managing like news resources, and then just, being in touch and staying connected.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I mentioned, I do a video chat with my parents every night, which I used to only see them once a week. I've got a group of friends that we do a video happy hour every Sunday evening, just so that we can all touch base, talk about what's going on in our lives, be supportive of one another. And that's really, really helpful when you're so disconnected from everyone physically.
And just to add in, I would say just to, and what we were mentioning earlier, self-care. Take the moment in all of this to just take care of yourself, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's your favorite book, maybe it's your favorite movie, but an ability to, what Jeremy was talking about, disconnect, what Gordon was talking about, being surrounded and connected with great friends, family, and good support. And even if you do have a professional help individual, whatever that looks like, but creating that space for you to pause, reflect, and then connect.
I agree. Put your mask on. Sometimes it's just getting out of the house. For me, it was going to the park with my mask on, watching kids play, and just some semblance of life again helps out. So it's not, spending any money. It's like I've heard my colleagues say, picking up the phone and staying connected with your friends and family. I think that's just, something you continue to do and check in.
And so when you talk about seeking help from a mental health professional, who does that mental health professional have to be? Who do you recommend? Does it have to be a psychologist, or is it a psychologist?
The Doesn't have to be psychologists, sociologists. I mean, you're talking specifically professionals. So it's not just the guy next door. But they don't have to be they don't have to be a doctor in something. Doesn't have to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Like I said, social worker. The city's EAP program is an excellent resource.
Right. Also look into certified peer specialist. A certified peer specialist is an individual who might have went through some of the challenge that you went through, has been certified and can speak to you specifically to whatever challenge that you might be having. So if you're working in the city, similar to what Gordon said, you have EAP, you have social workers, you have counselors, and there's also, I just want to throw out there because that gets lost in the sauce, certified peer specialist.
We have another question. If someone is against seeking professional mental health services, what are some ways to encourage them?
Repeat the question.
If someone is against seeking professional mental health services, what are some ways to encourage them?
I think for me, I had a similar situation with a friend, and I think one, it takes time from my perspective. Like, you know, when people are going through something, everyone's process of healing and managing and taking, you know, that in, it's different. So just knowing that to continually be there and be a support system and say, hey, you know, this is still available as a reminder, and, you know, even offering to send them resources, to call, you know, professionals together. You know, those are some things that I've done, you know, send links to EAP or NYC Well. So just, you know, reminding, providing the information, giving nudges, and also allowing the person to, you know, to take that and make that decision on their own. You don't want to, you know, force them and drag them into doing something. But just...
Definitely in agreement. I know we're getting close to time, so I'm gonna close out by saying this and then pass it back to Ayana so we can move forward. Is that I think from the outside the box, if you see somebody who is struggling, similar to what Jeremy said, give graceful nudges, constantly give information, reassurance that they can, but also assess for any type of risk or harm to themselves. And if that happens, activate accordingly. What does that mean to activate accordingly? Get help with the individual. It works best when you do it with the individual, but if they're in a position where they might hurt or harm themselves, then you have to call the appropriate emergency services to make sure that help is given before it's too late.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. This was a really great conversation. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to all the questions. We have several questions, and we will provide you with additional resources. So, you know, everyone, the gentleman talked about EAP. EAP is really a wonderful service that is available to all city employees, their dependents, and their family, whatever their family makeup looks like. And EAP counselors are all licensed master's level mental health professionals, and they are expanding their hours during this time. So they're open from 8 to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday. So they're a great resource. Please take advantage of this service that's available to us. On the screen, you'll see their number and their email address to contact them. And of course, share this information if you feel or recommend someone that may need this service. And New York City Well is a free service that's open to everyone in New York City. So they are confidential, as well as EAP is also confidential mental health support. They also provide, New York City Well also provides chat services in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and translation services in over 200 languages. So these are great services that we should all really take advantage of if we find the need, as well as share with our loved one and friends. Another point about NYC Well is that they have on their website a link to different apps that a person can download if they choose to, and those apps are free. Lots of them have great opportunities for meditation and other types of programs that will help someone to manage anxiety during this time as well. That's an added bonus. So let's talk about mental health at work. So I know that we talked a little bit about stigma and mental health, and people refer to man up. And so that really speaks to our Let's Talk campaign. It's designed to eliminate mental health stigma in the workplace by creating supportive workplaces and building resilience in our employees. And our aim is to promote education, awareness, and knowledge about mental health in the workplace. We would like to empower employees to take up calls of action, to seek resources, and offer support to each other. And so you can get involved by pledging your support. You can get involved by pledging your support, and you can click on the link. We will share these links with you in our follow-up email so you can pledge your support. But you can also take a look at the our prior webinars. We've done one on resilience, ending stigma in the workplace, and financial fitness. And of course, this webinar will also become part of those groups of webinars that you can share with all of your coworkers. We also have, it's not mentioned here, but if you go to our website, we also have an agency pledge that is recently come out. So if you are you a leader in your agency and you would like to continue this work in your agency, you can sign up for our agency pledge as well. And so if you are really passionate about this work, become a mental health champion as well. So champions are workplace health influencers. They help to promote programs and share information with their peers and colleagues. And so if you'd like to become a champion, feel free to email us at workwellolr.nyc.gov. Include mental health champion in the subject line, and we will get back to you and talk to you more about what that means. We'd love to get more and more mental health champions on board. And so we have lots of events coming up. So let's dive right into that. So as part of Men's Health Week, we have 2 more events coming up. Power Up Protein, a Q&A, and it's tomorrow. And we have nutritionists on our staff that will talk about protein and what you can do to keep yourself healthy. And we encourage everyone on Friday to wear blue in support for Men's Health Week. So those are 2 things that are coming up to balance off the Men's Health Week event. And next, we have our Work Well digital calendar. All of these links will be provided for you in the follow-up email, but our Work Well digital calendar offers really lots and lots of opportunity for exercise and meditation and self-massage. And so we will give you the link so that you can join in. We will also be having offering classes throughout July and August as well. Maybe a smaller schedule, but it still will be very robust opportunities for you to participate. We do have 2 more cooking demos coming up this month. And so please make sure that you participate. Today, this evening, it will be, I think they said corn cakes and peach sauce. And so that's really gonna be tasty. I can't wait to join in. And Move NYC virtual 5K, you can still sign up. And this is a great way to motivate yourself to get outside and take advantage of the great weather. What else is next? So get involved with us. If you are interested in getting involved, check out our Work Well NYC calendar by going to our website. And there's plenty of programs. Everything that we just talked about, everything I just mentioned was on our website for you to take advantage of. And most importantly, join our mailing list. That's really, really important, because if you join our mailing list, you will have the first opportunity to join in all of the different events that we are offering. We don't often have the opportunity to send out citywide email blasts. And so if you join our mailing list, you'll be sure to get everything. And stay connected with us. Work Well NYC, you can go to our website as well as send us emails and follow us on Instagram. Instagram is a great, easy way as well. You'll get up-to-date information as well. And you can comment on our roundtable discussion. We'd love to hear how you feel. And we'd love to hear more about the things that you'd like to see from us at Work Well. So definitely follow us on Instagram. And guys, I just want to thank you very much for participating in this roundtable discussion. This was a wonderful discussion. Great information was shared. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any last words?
Thank you.
Thanks, it was a pleasure.
Well, I really do appreciate everyone's time. And we're going to say thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining. And we will see you next webinar. Take care.
Take care. Bye.